I got most of my start with my career writing. I would write everywhere I went. I would write race reports. I would write product reviews. Writing was like my ticket to get noticed. But I learned to write from you, Andrew.
Hello, and welcome to the Arts of Language podcast with Andrew Pudewa, founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, or as many like to say, IEW. My name is Julie Walker, and I'm honored to serve Andrew and IEW as the Chief Marketing Officer. Our goal is to equip teachers and teaching parents with methods and materials which will aid them in training their students to become confident and competent communicators and thinkers. Andrew, you know when you're old?
Do I know when I'm old?
Yes.
I don't know what it's like to be old.
No.
Good answer.
Me neither. But you know you're old when the kids that you taught are now all grown up and doing really important things.
Yeah, and they have kids who are almost grown up too.
Yes.
It happens very, very fast.
This is true, and we are so excited to have on our podcast today such a one as this. And Andrew, why don't you introduce our guest?
Sure. Ben Greenfield. Anyone who is at all aware of the fitness, health, longevity, biohacking world has heard of Ben Greenfield and hopefully has had a chance to listen to at least some of his podcasts and read many of his writings. Today we'll talk about his books. It was kind of fun because Ben Greenfield was a student in some writing classes that I was teaching way back, long before I met you. We were in Moscow, Idaho, and I just started IEW, and we had a little homeschool group, and there's this little kid. I don't remember how old he was, probably 13, 14.
So, Ben, you were one of his guinea pigs.
I think I was 12 or 13.
Yeah. And then, we moved away, and life went on, and you grew up, and then kind of out of the blue, about 5 years ago, you contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to get some writing program for my boys. And so we reestablished contact at that point. And it was so exciting for me because it was about 5 years ago that I got real serious about health and fitness and cleaned up my diet and my sleep and my life and everything. And so the fact that you can be here today is so exciting to me. I'm happier that you're on this podcast than I would be if you were the president of the United States.
Oh, geez. I think that's a compliment. It's kind of funny because the admiration, of course, goes both ways because, I got most of my start with my career writing. I actually was traveling all over the world wearing too much spandex. I was racing Ironman triathlon, but I would write everywhere I went. I would write race reports. I would write product reviews. I wrote for all the triathlon magazines. I wrote blogs on my website, almost like travel blogs/vlogs. And so writing was like my ticket to get noticed in terms of just like using content to drive traffic back to my website where I would then, sell coaching and I would sell products. But I learned to write from you, Andrew. Like it was basically you and then my mom who was really good with the red pen. But I remember, so this is kind of funny because I was thinking about this just this morning as I was thinking about you and I was tweeting, or Xing, I guess is what it's called now. And when you look at X, some of the best X posts out there or authors are really good at creating compressible thoughts and saying a lot with little. And I just remember those exercises that we used to do in your basement where you would give us like this whole like paragraph and we had to distill it down to as few sentences as possible. And that was like my favorite exercise, just to go from a whole story to just like a single tiny choppy sentence. And so I learned a ton from you. So thank you.
Oh, it's so fun to reflect on those old days. And I sometimes imagine about some of the other kids I remember. I don't remember them all and wonder, what are they all up to? So, but now you homeschooled your twin boys, and we'd like to kind of talk a little bit about your coming into homeschooling and then your strategies, because you have some really interesting ideas about parenting. And also, I'd like to get some tips for our listeners on kind of what are the the most valuable things you've learned in this exploration of health and parenting and applying that in the world of children. So let's dive in. Now, how old are your twins right now?
17.
17, both boys. And were you always planning to homeschool them, or was that a decision you had to make when they got to be about school age?
No, I got pretty disillusioned when we were living in Spokane and they were kind of getting ready for their elementary years, that if you paid enough money for a really great private education where all of, like the Microsoft employees' kids went and everything, that you could just step back as a parent and watch your child blossom into a little intellectual powerhouse. And so we initially did some homeschooling, and then I started to do well enough in business to where we could afford tuition at a pretty nice local private school. So nice, in fact, that Sydney Sweeney went there. So how good is that? And it was 2nd through 5th grade, they were in this school, and it basically was just like a glorified public education with a little bit nicer classroom and campus. And as I observed the educational model and began to take a deeper dive into educational models and talked with a lot of successful entrepreneurs who had used alternative schooling methods for their children, who were friends of mine, who I had seen grow up to start their own businesses and be successful, impactful people, I realized that my kids were on the verge of kind of entering into the grade, 6th grade, at which the load of homework and the rote memorization and test taking and learning at the same pace as the rest of the classroom and all the other issues with formal public education would outpace any enjoyment derived from these social aspects. And that's about when it happens, right around anywhere from 11 to 13 years old. So I took my sons out to dinner. I sat them down. I said, look, I am not interested in homeschooling you guys, but I would love to try out this whole idea of unschooling, meaning an experiential education in which we surround you with as many games and excursions and travel experiences and books and tutors and webinars and just like practical hands-on things that allow you to learn, and let you talk to us about what kind of things you're really interested in, what your true passions and desires are, and I'll make that happen for you. And if you want to do this, you don't need to go back to 6th grade. And the question that they both asked, that was their biggest concern, was, well, will I still see my friends? And, as we went on and we progressed into the whole unschooling thing, yes, they saw their friends. They saw a lot of friends because they were doing so much socially and with sports and having more free time to be with friends and have friends over. And so the social piece wasn't an issue, but that was kind of how it started, was, oh, hey, even like a nice private school is really not the way that a child can learn best. And so we started down this new path.
Was your wife a little bit hesitant, or was she just trusting you completely on that?
Oh, heck no. My wife hated school. So now, of course, my wife's concern is because she hated school. She was dyslexic, and that certainly contributed to it, was that she would have to teach. And, some models of homeschool are basically a public school education, but at the kitchen table, right? Where you got the books and the curriculum and you're taking the tests. And my wife does not have the heart of a teacher. Now, she's an amazing, she comes from just like a Montana rancher family, so she makes all the furniture and clothing from scratch and bakes the bread and is just like a top-notch domestic engineer. But yeah, just not, doesn't have the heart of a teacher. And then at that time, and still, I travel a lot. There would be some months where I'd be gone like 3 weeks out of the month. So I'm not going to take on the role of a teacher and then just be gone. And so we figured out kind of a hybrid model. But my wife was like, she knows that one of my passions is education. And so she kind of trusted me in the process, just because, when I roll up my sleeves and decide to do something, I really do the research, and she knows that, and she trusted that.
Well, the research, I'm just thinking about this, and I think it's worth mentioning because a lot of our listeners may not know who you are, Ben, but you've written a lot of books. And in order to write a book, you have to do a lot of research. So can you just mention really quickly the titles of some of your books, especially the Boundless parenting one, which I will admit,
Okay.
I just downloaded. And I love that you're the reader for that in the Audible series. So
It has ranged everything from Shape 21, the 21-day complete fitness program that my mom shot videos of me with my shirt off in the park at the like with an old camera to create, and my wife and I self-published via InDesign, and I drove around in my crappy old car when I was a fledgling personal trainer to drop off at local GNCs and gyms to sell, all the way up to my first attempt at an ebook called 100 Ways to Boost Your Metabolism. And when I made my first, $7 while I was asleep, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can sell stuff online. And then that progressed eventually to writing my first New York Times bestseller, Beyond Training. And then my entire Boundless series, Boundless Kitchen, Boundless Cookbook, Boundless Parenting, Boundless, Upgrade Your Body, Optimize Your Brain, and Defy Aging, to my spiritual series, Endure, Fit Soul, the Spiritual Disciplines Journal, and a few, little projects in between, along with another title I published last year called Precepts, which was basically like a book of life advice for my sons. So yeah, kind of spans the gamut.
Well, one of the ones that I listened to, the Boundless, the kind of main one first, and I got the audio, and I was listening to it, and it was so rich, so dense, and I was, I don't know, a quarter of the way through it, and I thought, oh no, now I'm going to have to buy the paper copy too, because I want to read this again. I want to mark this up. I want to use it. And I will offer a small little critique that your books are big. They are so big that it is easy to feel overwhelmed. I will never, ever be able to use all this information, even if I lived 100 years more.
All right. So just in my defense, especially after the paradoxical statement about you equipping me to write such compressible tweets, the books are not big because I'm so bad at writing. I'm not the best, but the books are big because my vision for the books that you're referring to is for them to be like a beautiful coffee table style hardcover that you open and peruse like a cookbook. That is an adventure that gives you wisdom and help for years to come. And so that's why I wanted to write a book like that. And of course, it's difficult to find a publisher. I wound up finding a publisher who specializes in big books like this, especially in the health and fitness sector, Victory Belt. And as a matter of fact, so many publishers told me not to write a book of that magnitude, 700 pages, or a book that has a $60 price point. But now, when authors want to write a big book and you pull up that book on BookScan, it stands out as the book that actually achieved that. And so many authors now go to my publisher when they want to write a big book because they've seen that it can successfully be done, even if all the other publishing agents turn them down.
Well, and it's almost like having a beautiful hardbound encyclopedia in your home, and you have a thought, and you go and you look in your book, and boom, there's something applicable to that thought at that moment. I've found the book kind of calling to me every now and then, and you just pick it up and look through it and find something that's applicable, like the Holy Spirit working between my mind and your book and exactly what I need.
Andrew, did you get any of his cookbooks?
I have not got the cookbooks.
See, you and I both cook, and that's the ones that appealed to me. Of course, as a grandparent, I'm very interested in, what did I do wrong and what can I fix? And so the parenting book definitely appealed to me.
And you can be a real big-time foodie
yes,
and still be as whole and natural and healthy as a food can get. So
the cookbooks, I am a total poser in the kitchen. I don't have any formal training, but I kind of took the whole passion for like getting the most out of the body using science to getting the most out of food using science. There's a lot of like sous vide and pressure cooker and fringe ingredients from like Amazon and India and Hawaii and like weird concoctions that you're not going to find elsewhere, and nose to tail style eating with all these weird organ meats, and and you'll find like whatever, a grass-fed, grass-finished beef heart with like a beet heart coffee rub on it. And it's a very unique cookbook. The two cookbooks are, but it honestly is the way I cook whenever somebody is brave enough to let me.
Oh, I want to come. My daughter, who I mentioned to you before we started recording, Julia, their family runs 100% grass-fed, grass-finished cattle. They have created a product of grinding the organs into beef sticks. So they've got 10% organ meat, and it's really starting to pick up. It's called whole sticks. I'd love
Link
to
in the
send
show
you some
notes.
samples if you give me an address. I wanted to thank you again also for introducing me to Katie Wells and
Oh, yeah.
Wellness Mama. We had a great podcast. We'll link to that one. I wanted to ask you, though, the same question I asked her. It's maybe not a fair question, but time was always short. I asked her, of all the things you know, what is the one thing that you believe would be the most important or make the biggest difference in helping parents get, and teachers too, make teaching and learning easier at home? What would be the one thing you would say, if you don't do anything else, do this, and it has the potential to just improve your kids' balance, emotional stability, attentiveness, engagement levels?
Yeah.
I hope that's a fair question.
It's a big question, Andrew.
Sure. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that we've all kind of been brainwashed that we have to teach a certain way or we're going to get in trouble and someone's going to come knocking on our door that we didn't open up a book and go through the chapter and take the quiz and then rinse, wash, and repeat. But we kind of looked at things through a bit more of a unique lens, meaning we would ask ourselves the question when our children would be learning anything, can this be, oh gosh, I might have to make up a word here, experientialized. Experientialized? Can this be done experientially? And so that meant that, for example, their entire geometry mathematics curriculum one year was building a tree fort with an affordable local contractor who we hired to take them out in the woods multiple times per week and learn woodworking and angles and diameters and arithmetic and everything that's necessary to make a tree fort that doesn't collapse. Or when we would want to jump through the Washington State hoops of having to do social studies, chemistry, and language, we would have a block of cooking a Japanese meal or a Spanish meal or an Italian meal, with the culmination of that semester being an actual family trip to Italy, right? To bike through Italy and to take cooking classes and to try out our language that we had learned, which is obviously kind of like an extreme example. But, anything that you want to teach a child, you should step back and ask, can this be done in a hands-on way? And it makes it really fun, and you sometimes have to be creative, but there's not like an education police who's going to show up at your door and tell you that you can't teach that way. Now, that all being said, like certain states have certain rules for what you have to learn and what you have to journal, but it's not hard to be creative and, again, say, whatever, we're going to tick the social studies, chemistry, and language box today by making, whatever, tongue tacos.
I've often said to parents, it's really not a big deal. Just do whatever you want to do and call it whatever you have to call it to fill out your transcript or make the state happy and all that. I wanted to just have you briefly talk about Boundless Parenting. It's such a unique book. I don't know of anything else out there that even comes close. Again, it's big, it's overwhelming. But in the first, so you interviewed all sorts of different parents that had done all sorts of different and kind of unique things. You wrote the first section about you and your family, and you had kind of some schedule things that you would do every morning or maybe almost every morning, every evening, things that you worked into the rhythm of life. I think would be so valuable for our listeners to get a quick summary of that.
Yes. So Boundless is kind of like a tools of Titans for parenting. Meaning, when I wrote that, my sons were 13. We hadn't yet proved yet that they weren't just going to wind up in prison. And so I didn't want to claim that I had all the answers. But like I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of friends who had raised successful and impactful children. And I'd seen a lot of different models work and seen a lot of cool techniques that a lot of parents were using for education, for discipline, for the day-to-day flow and habits in the home. So I interviewed about 30 different parents, ranging from, single moms to pastors to wildly successful entrepreneurs. And they all answered the same set of questions like, what keeps you awake at night, or what did you do when you and your spouse differed about a certain parenting philosophy, or how did you approach education, or what did you do when one child needed a different approach than another child, and just put all of that into the book. And the funnest part of the book is that the audiobook is super cool because all the parents did their own audio. So you get to listen to it from the mouths of the parents. I think the audiobook is like the most underrated aspect of that book. But we have a Greenfield family constitution, to answer your question directly, and that is our legacy document. It is the manual for the Greenfield family. It is our mission statement, our core values, our spirit animals, our hex colors, our family crest, our family story, our family insurance and agents and wealth managers, or what we do on Thanksgiving, what we do on Easter, what we do on Christmas, all the way down to every family member's end of life and memorial service wishes. It's all in there. And when my sons get married and start their family, they'll be able to take that Constitution and build on it and improve it for their own family. But within the pages of the Constitution are also some of the daily comings and goings and some of the rituals and routines, like 7 a.m., like clockwork. The entire family meets on the back patio or the living room floor for Bible reading, for prayer, for a discussion about the day, who's making what for dinner, who's got the car and where. We all huddle up and clap like a football team afterwards. And every single day we have that family morning huddle, every single evening, 7 p.m. like clockwork. We all arrive in the kitchen, and my sons and I discuss the chapter from our father-son book club for that day, and we sing a song, and we say a prayer, and everyone takes out from the oven or the crock pot or the refrigerator the dish that they've brought to contribute to family dinner that night, and we all sit down and play games for about an hour, card games and board games, and just have a great time. Every night's like a party. And then there are things that are more like less regularly scheduled comings and goings, like age 12. Greenfield young man goes through rite of passage from childhood into adolescence, a ceremonial coming of age in which, in the case of our sons, they went off in the wilderness for 3 days under the guidance and watchful eye of a wilderness expert who made sure that they didn't die, but who also wasn't there with them, just kind of watching from afar. And then they came out, and we had a fire ceremony and a party and clapped them on the back, and they were officially expected to contribute more to the household as far as chores and their involvement, and they became a little bit more under my watch, under mom's watch, and that was their entryhood into adolescence. At age 16 in the Constitution, it says that they must, without any money from mom and dad, and without any friends, and without mom and dad, they need to leave the house for 3 months and not come back. Wow. And so they got a used car, they found a good deal on a tent for the top of the car, and they drove away, and they couldn't come back for 3 months. And they learned a lot about, how much a chicken costs and how many days you can eat a chicken for dinner and where to get oatmeal and how to sleep in a Walmart parking lot. And they wound up really going the national park route. They went to a lot of national parks, and they'd kind of park outside the parks and sleep in their car or sleep under the stars. And they arrived back 3 months, a lot more mature individuals who understood a little bit more about how to survive on their own and how to stretch a dollar.
Wow, that is no doubt a phenomenal thing for them. I mean, best friends, twins, going through that. Did your wife have nervousness about this, sending them off at 16 for 3 months?
She didn't like the parts where they were completely out of cell phone range, mm-hmm. and she couldn't track them or see where they were or talk with them, because she did call them. Yeah, she had a few nights where she cried, but that's good for a parent.
I can just imagine some of the moms out there thinking, "No, I can never do that."
Yeah, and then age 17 is a vision quest. So they did a 10-day vision quest of fasting in the wilderness with just a backpack and a wool blanket and a knife, and they faced their own fears. In this, they were truly alone. Besides, again, a mentor to check in each day to make sure that they left a rock in a specific location where they were supposed to leave a rock to indicate that they were still out there and alive.
Wow.
And so that was their 10-day quest. And when they came back from that, again, responsibilities amped up. They were expected to work 2 to 3 hours a day at home, contributing with chores and stuff for room and board. And that was kind of like the rite of passage from adolescence into adulthood. So we kind of baked a lot of those into the Constitution as well.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Well, we could go on forever because we hardly touched on any of the other parents and the other ideas that they have. But where can people learn more about you and what you're doing, and I'm assuming they can get this book on Amazon or maybe directly from you. I just want to put in a plug also for Keon. I use your protein powder, your colostrum, and your sleep supplement, and some of the best stuff that I've come across. And I thank you hugely for that, as well as all of the other tips. It's like every time I listen to one of your podcasts, I get an idea of how I can be better physically, spiritually.
So Andrew's affiliate link is in the show notes.
No,
I'm totally kidding.
This is like the Pudewa PR agency. I love it.
No, but I've just been so blessed, and so I would love any of the parents who. Oh, and you have to explain why you sound so winded all the time.
Yes, I was waiting to say that.
You're atypical podcast guest here.
Yeah, I'm walking on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Not super winded, but yeah, I decided that rather than having some fancy studio with a suit and plush leather, I just want to practice what I preach, and I figure I can get good information out to people. And yeah, I'm occasionally breathless, but I walk while I'm doing a lot of my Zoom calls and podcasts and everything else.
All right, Julie, we got to get some treadmills in this studio here.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds
Phoebe'd
good.
be up for it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so give us all the links, all the ideas where people can find you.
Oh, for the purposes of consolidation, if you just go to bengreenfieldlife.com, you can find links to just about everything.
Sounds great.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I still hope that somehow I can bump into you somewhere at one of the events you're at, or make a trek out to your place there in Idaho. And if you ever happen to be passing through Tulsa, Oklahoma, I would just love to have you here and maybe cook dinner for you sometime.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Oh, man, I don't make it to Oklahoma much. I don't know if I ever have, actually, but that's a good excuse to do it.
Well, give my best to your boys. I hope the writing program gave them a little boost in their love of putting words on paper, and I will be so excited over the next 10 years to see what they are doing with this phenomenal upbringing and childhood and experiential education.
Yeah.
It's going to be real exciting.
They started a card game company, so that's what they're doing right now, which involves writing and storytelling and graphic design, and they're having an amazing time.
And is that on bengreenfieldlife.com? You can find their card games?
Oh, no, it's their own company. Their first game you can see at fartofwar.com.
Fart of War.
Okay, link in the show notes.
Sounds like
a teenage boy.
URL. You know what?
Absolutely.
They launched it a few months ago. They fully funded their Kickstarter campaign. They're working on their Amazon and their Shopify pages, and they're making some pretty cool games. So,
well, Ben, keep up your awesome work, and I really appreciate how you are completely able to just integrate your faith with all of your knowledge that is so wholesome in terms of the body, the mind, the soul, the connections. In my past 5 years of getting into fitness and that whole idea of making my body the best body I can make it, even at my very advanced age, I've found so many benefits, spiritually, intellectually, socially, family-wise. So I just encourage people to see what you've got and see what they can take from the great storehouse of knowledge you have to offer.
Well, I'm honored you had me on. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ben.
God bless.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please subscribe to our podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify, or just visit us each week at iew.com/podcasts. Here you can also find show notes and relevant links from today's broadcast. One last thing, would you mind going to iTunes to rate and review our podcast? This really helps other smart, caring listeners like you find us. Thanks so much.